Hey, this is Nathas, and I'm here with another Alpha booster kit opening of Solforge Fusion. Alright, so I've got a sealed Alpha booster kit here. We're going to open it and see what's inside. Definitely very excited. Set 2 coming out, and it's making me want to open more of my Set 1 stuff that I've had set aside. So we've got one deck from each faction. I'm going to start with our Aloyan deck, and then we'll get them all open. We're going to start with an Armored Sentry, an Armored War Charger, a Bright Steel Gargoyle, Camouflaged Reinforcements, Scythian Experimentation, Digitize, Tricks, Gauntlets of Sulgrim, Orion Battle Droid, Rallying Drone, and our Forgeborn is a Steel Rosetta. Will enhance at level 2, repurpose at level 3, and inspire at level 4. So this is a really interesting deck. It's very armor heavy, which can be really cool if you want to have some resilience against aggro decks. The Battle Droid, it's a little weak against stuff with -X for the health, the power, and toughness, so it could die pretty easily there. But otherwise, having to get through armor that regenerates each turn is really strong. Are really hard to do. Armored War Charger also has armor, as well as your Armored Sentry, so all three of these are going to be pretty hard to kill. The Bright Steel Gargoyle can give you temporary armor. If you have the Forge and you activate it, you can give it armor. Otherwise, you give it power and you let it move it. So it can be resilient when you don't have the Forge, and when you do, it makes sure it stays alive. Drix is an amazing card just because it can create minions, specifically gizmos, that give your creatures power and toughness, as well as when another one of your creatures places a creature, give it power if the Drix is out there. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to buff your other creatures, and then Rallying Drone is really cool because it's got stealth. It lets your other creatures, if it replaces them, get all buffed. So the level 3 gives you +4/+4. And then every time it hits a player, you can either upgrade cards in your hand or you upgrade cards and play them for free. It's got a little bit of removal with the gauntlets. It's got the ability to ready your Drix or your Gargoyle with the Scythian Experimentation. And it's got Digitize, which I know is a very popular card on the Discord right now, just because it's it's the center of a lot of discussion. It's not the greatest card competitively, but it is definitely a really fun card to play with, especially with all the discussion about Digitize. So this is an interesting deck, and it's one that could be really strong with either something. It's pretty controlling. So if you have stuff like Firestorm or things that will destroy your opponent's creatures while your creatures with armor stay alive, that could be really good as a pairing. So let's look at our Tempest deck. We've got an Arrogant Giant, a Firefist Uranti, a Fit of Rage, a Fleet Stonefist, a Hibernating Lasher, an Inflaming Razortooth, a Primordial Slam, a Staff of Varus, a Stampeding Warhound, a Windspark Elemental, and our Forgeborn is a Sunder with a Summon the Swarm at level 2, a Gathering Storm at level 3, and a Stimbolt at level 4. All right, So this deck is kind of interesting. I really like when a Fire Fist Uranti deck has a Staff of Varus, because whenever you play Staff of Varus on a mage, you'll get to deal damage to a creature, plus it makes one of your creature's power larger. So with the Fire Fist Uranti, you could activate it to deal damage equal to its power to a creature or player. So if you can do a level 3 Staff of Varus on a Fire Fist Uranti, you could basically activate that Fire Fist for 19 damage to either a face or a creature. Arrogant Giant has a very large attack, which can be very interesting. Plus, something like Fit of Rage could give that breakthrough. And there's a lot of cards that have larger attack stats, and Fit of Rage could be a really nice thing here to help you get your creatures through. Plus, if you played another spell before the Fit of Rage, you can copy it and do it on more than one creature. So specifically level 3 lets you do it on all of your creatures instead. The Hibernating Lasher can be a removal. Same with the Stampeding Warhound. Your Inflaming Razortooth can be really nice to buff your other creatures, so it can buff your Fire Fist or one of your aggressive or breakthrough creatures. Your Windspark Elemental is great because it's got aggressive and it's basically removal, because if you play it in an empty lane when you're not on the Forge, you can almost guarantee that it's going to deal damage and then hopefully remove a creature after combat. So this can be a very aggressive deck. This is one that I think I'd probably want to pair with something that could either take advantage of the Fire Fist or take advantage of the aggressive nature of this deck. All right, let's move on to our Terra deck. We've got an Arrogant Raptor, Botanimate, Camouflaged Hunter, Druid's Chant, Feral Instinct, Forge Seal, Lead the Charge, Relentless Wanderers, Toward My Guardian, Transcendent Biologist, and our Forgeborn is a Nova with a level 2 Nova's Might, a level 3 Nova's Touch, and a level 4 Nova's Dominion. All right, so this is an interesting deck. It has removal on the sake of Camouflaged Hunter, so you could use that to fight one of your creatures with its adjacent creature. It's got Stealth, which is a Camouflaged Hunter, could be nice, because if you could use something to fight and then have this in another lane on your Forge turn, you could potentially get in some free damage. Relentless Wanderers is an interesting card because at levels 1 and 2 you're making Wisps, at level 3 you're making Oak Fathers. It's a card that sometimes can be hard to want to level early, but if you could get it to level 3, the payoff is really good by being able to make an Oak Father every turn. Now with Lead the Charge, you can ready your Relentless Wanderer and potentially get more than one minion on the same turn. Same thing with Forge Seal, because that basically gives one of your creatures the ability to activate to use one of your Forgeborn abilities at the level higher than Forge Seal currently is. So your level 3 Forge Seal can use your level 4 Forgeborn ability. Botanimate is a great removal card as long as you keep it leveled up, because it can remove anything of whatever level and replace it with a Wisp. So if you have a level 3 creature that's really hard to get rid of, like something like a Shambler, where when it dies it'll deal damage to you, you could use a Botanimate and remove that by just replacing it with a Wisp, gain life, and you don't take the damage from the Shambler. Feral Instinct is a really good card if you have a creature that can get really big. So your Toward My Guardian here can actually get kind of big depending on how you play your game. But with Relentless Wanderers being Defender, that'll always enter in the back, which will buff your Guardian. Your Feral Instinct, if you have a really big Guardian or another really big creature on the other side, maybe like your Arrogant Raptor, you can give it armor, you can give it breakthrough, you can give it attack, and then when it deals damage, you can either play a card for free or a minion for free, depending on what level you are with the Feral Instinct. Then finally, the Biologist with the Relentless Wanderers will let you buff your minions that you play. So whether it's the Oak Fathers or the Wisps, you'll be able to play a minion and then buff your minions. So this one is something that I would probably want to pair with something that either synergizes with being able to replace creatures like your Relentless Wanderers on minions, something that's a minion-based deck, so maybe a Necrom zombie deck. There's a lot of different things that you can pair this with. And then also Lead the Charge being able to Force Seal twice. I'd probably want to pair this with a Cersei, just because Cersei is one of the stronger Forgeborn abilities to do a lot of removal. Now finally we have one more deck, which is our Necrom deck. We've got a Bone Scythe Reaver, a Combat Fiend, a Commanding Spirit, a Ghoulish Shambler, a Grave Pact, a Howl of Zith, an Infernal Ritual, an Ossuary Mech, a Scourge Hydra, a Spite Maiden, and our Forgeborn is a Nyx with a Soul Rip at level 2, a Dark Summoning at level 3, and a Raising Dead at level 4. So there's definitely some interesting cards in this deck. It's something that we'll have to see if there's any good synergies altogether. All right, so I guess the first thing to notice is that there is some interesting creature removal, but there's not a ton of spell removal. So Grave Pact is the only one, but the fact that there's a Shambler here and also a Scourge Hydra is actually really strong, because you could basically use Grave Pact to sacrifice one of your creatures, and then you could get a Shambling trigger if you have your Shambler out, and then as well, if you sacrifice a creature then play your Scourge Hydra, you'll be able to remove something else. Bone Scythe Reaver, when it enters, you could destroy either a minion, level 1, or level 1 and level 2 creature, so that's just another option to play a creature, destroy something off the board. Combat Fiend, when it's destroyed, you can give your creatures a buff, which can be nice. Commanding Spirit, because there's a lot of ways to actually kind of either... There's only one zombie actually in the deck, but then Infernal Ritual creates zombies as well. Commanding could be really strong, because if you have a bunch of brutes that you make off Infernal Ritual and then you play a Commanding Spirit to give them all +6/+6, it can just make your board really big really quickly. Something that's interesting is spirits. If you have those with the Shambler, you can basically play a spirit in a lane that is already has an opposing creature. That way you can get your Shambling trigger right away and have it destroy. So if you need to destroy something to activate one of your other abilities, that could be really strong. Now, there's only 3 spells in this deck, but Spite Maiden can be really strong because you could take damage to play a spell for free, which earlier in the game, you're able to cycle and upgrade more cards, which is going to be stronger for your later Forge turns. And also, if you end up destroying your Ossuary Mech, you can upgrade cards or play them, or play a card from your discard pile for free whenever it dies. So you can kind of use your Infernal Ritual to trigger your mech. And the same thing with your Grave Pact. Now, the final thing to mention is that Ghoulish on the Shambler is pretty cool, because you're going to get the ability of when it enters, you can upgrade cards in your discard up until you get to level 3, or then you could play a level 3 card for free next turn. So there's a lot of ways to upgrade cards in your deck with this one, as well as the ability to kind of throw out a level 3 card for free on a Shambler, where when a Shambler is a really strong creature in general, it's nice to have a really strong modifier for it. So these are the 4 decks from this Alpha Booster Kit, and I'll see you next time.